I don't want to live an average life. That's where Not Your Average Lender was born. That's where, before there was Not Your Average Lender, I was putting hashtag, and before I was really in the mortgage business, I was always putting like hashtag defeat average.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, something
what
about.
What business were you in when you were putting hashtag defeat average?
No business.
Oh.
I was unemployed.
So bro, before we get into this, I'm going to tell you I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
You've come a long way.
Thank you.
In what I think is a short period of time, but like, I feel like we've known each other a long time.
It's what, 5 years, 6 years?
I don't know. When did I meet you? Probably at like a YPN event.
When was your Man of the Year thing?
I knew you before that though.
So
that was COVID. COVID hit when?
So
2019?
2020.
Okay.
So and then I probably met you maybe a year and a half before that. So we probably met 2019, 2018.
Which is crazy. 6 years.
It feels like it's still 2021 at least.
It's been a blur.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff has happened.
2025. Holy crap.
Yeah. It's an exciting time to be alive though.
Yeah. It's a good time in the business, I think. And it's funny because in that short period of time, our industry has seen so many different things. Some like unprecedented, some that, all right, this is cyclical and this has happened before. We've had high inventory, low inventory, high rates, low rates. We had a pandemic. We had like in that 10-year period,
AI was born.
AI and a lot of advances in technology, obviously. Just in that 10-year period, it's crazy how much has happened.
But you don't look a day older. Your hairline hasn't moved at all.
Thank you.
You look slimmer though.
I try to.
And now you're a jiu-jitsu certified trained killer.
I've always been that though.
You still doing that?
Yeah. You got the yeah.
So tell everybody what you're doing. Obviously, everybody on Long Island knows you're not that average lender.
Yeah.
Which is easy because I stress this to people. The percentage of loan officers that actually know anything about anything is like...
It's pretty low. But doesn't that apply to everything though? Or you're saying especially with mortgage?
Especially with mortgages, yeah. I'll give that to you. 90% of people in every industry, shot. Like it's very easy to be successful because all you have to do is actually work and not be lazy and take pride in your craft. On the loan officer side, with what we deal with dozens of times a month, I hold you in the highest regard of the top 3 people that I've ever dealt with in loans on Long Island of 500 plus deals done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So what do you got going on? You got a lot of crazy stuff. You've been in the lab with a pen and the pad, making big moves. You made a big jump recently.
Yeah. So we our whole division moved over to Interstate, and we're relaunching that company. And me and my 2 partners are trying to take kick things up a notch for sure.
So just a little bit about the legacy of that. So. Terry Cullen, very close friend of mine, been in the mortgage business for 45 years, introduced you guys was it 4 years ago?
This was also this is 2020.
Yeah, which is wild. You're like, yo, I got an idea. I'm like, I know a guy you should talk to. And then here we are 4 or 5 years later, which is testament to follow up, man, and follow through.
It was 4 years of thought and conversations, and it's something that we've always wanted. We've always wanted to do things differently. So just like you, or other people, they get into a space and they realize they don't like what the options are, right? And out of necessity, you go and start something yourself, right? So that's sort of the motivation behind everything. I've also, I always say it, this industry has changed my life. It's allowed me to live completely different as far as financially goes. It's introduced, I've made friendships like with people like you, where I would have never rubbed shoulders with somebody like you if it weren't for this industry. So I've always felt like, okay, how can we give everybody the opportunity to excel in this business? And that's sort of the motivation behind what we're doing.
Yeah, and listen, you had a wild life, man.
Yeah.
It could be a movie. It might be a movie one day.
Depending on how far this next chapter goes, maybe, yes.
How old are you now? Are you 30?
I'm 29.
You're 29. I feel like, yeah, man. I mean,
29. I'll be 30 this year, actually. Yeah.
So just so people understand, right? I guess we can talk about kind of like more so like where have you done, what are you doing now, and what have you accomplished? And then we can kind of take it back to like where you came from, which is an interesting segue. But I mean, I remember when I first met you, 4 or 5 years ago, it was very, very apparent that you were hungry and you were doing things different. And in your industry, that's very, very difficult because mortgages is like super highly regulated pain in the ass. Like it is not easy to like break out of the box because again, there is so much regulation associated with the mortgage industry. But you were, working on CRMs when nobody knew what a CRM was. You were working on like, processes of creating videos and creating journeys for, your clients so that they felt comfortable and they felt connected. How do you scale yourself, which is extremely difficult, right? Because if you're an LO, if you're a realtor, I kind of like put them parallel because they run similar type of, you're in your own business. How do you scale yourself? There's only a certain amount of hours in the day. It's 7 days a week. It's 24/7. The phone never stops. That's why you have 2.
Yeah, I do have 2.
Right? So, for a very young guy who didn't have a lot of experience in the industry, you were doing a lot of very cutting edge things, which was great. And like right away I saw, hey, this is someone that's going to go somewhere and really has potential. And you had big dreams, which is cool, which is why I originally made that intro. And I'm like, if someone's going to do this, it's going to be this guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think like it all comes back to like my background, which I guess we'll talk about. I don't want to live an average life. That's where Not Your Average Lender was born. That's where, before there was Not Your Average Lender, I was putting hashtag, and before I was really in the mortgage business, I was always putting like hashtag defeat average. Yeah. Because I don't know, something about...
What business were you in when you were putting hashtag defeat average?
No business.
Oh.
I was unemployed. No, but I think it's that's what scares me, is living, like I want to get the most out of this life while I'm here. That's where that all comes from.
So, I mean, I guess we could talk about this because it's been pretty widely documented and published on social media. I always say that Hempstead made a man out of me, right? I spent 10 years in Hempstead owning and operating a Mako body shop franchise, which literally took me from a sheltered Wantoa kid to someone that, had bullet holes in the glass window and, people were ripping their shirts off and threatening to beat the hell out of me on a daily basis. Now, maybe a weekly basis. That's a kind of an exaggeration. You have a similar but different relationship with Hempstead.
I wouldn't say it's just Hempstead. I would say just, I would say, as a adolescent, teenager, I started going down the wrong path.
You were way down the path, bro. You were at the end of the path.
Well, started as a teenager and then obviously, yeah, ended up way down the path, but the bad path. But it comes down to anything that you can say it's who I was hanging out with. You can say it was movies and shows. I don't know what caused it, but one thing led to another, and here I am, down that path, and everything with a bad life. And everything that you didn't want your kid doing, I was doing. And life isn't good when you go down that path and you suffer consequences and you go through pain and struggle. And really a big part of my story is addiction. I battled with addiction for pretty much since, the first time I smoked weed, and that in itself we can talk about, but it also, it's outside of that as well. It's the lifestyle that I was living and the mindset and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I like to touch on this stuff. I mean, it's a little bit cliche, but it is kind of for people to understand that you were in a very dark place.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't that long ago for all intents and purposes. I would say, how many years ago? Was it 10 years? Was it less than 10 years?
It'll be 10 years in August.
Yeah. So I know I like to look at
that
things.
I've been sober. Yeah.
10 years in August that you've been sober.
Mhm.
So like I like to look at things in 10-year blocks. A lot of people like 10 years, that's like a lifetime. But your entire life can change in a matter of 10 years. Like I haven't been in real estate for 10 years. I've been in real estate for 8. I think this is my 9 years game. Fast forward 10 years, very different animal. So like somebody can really be in the worst possible place in life. And then within 10 years, if you're doing the right thing,
Completely different.
yeah, I mean, that's in regards to health, that's financial success, that's whatever. Like you can go from being dead ass broke to being retired in 10 years.
Mm-hmm. A decade's a good amount of time, but it's also, like you said, in the grand scheme of things, not that much. You know,
No.
I at this point, I've been sober longer than I was using drugs and drinking, which is kind of wild to think.
The moment it was like, no more drugs.
There's a lot of those moments.
But like the real final moment.
So, it's funny because the final moment wasn't the dramatic one. It was I'm going to give this a shot and let's try to do this again. And it was just, you know, going back a little bit, there was multiple moments throughout my journey where I said, I can't do this anymore. You know, after suffering some sort of consequence, after, you know, family things and you know, things at school, things legally, and you know, everybody knows somebody that has struggled. So we all pretty much have similar stories and similar consequences when you go through addiction. And every single one of those consequences, I of course threw my hands up in the air and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And guess what? The next day I was off to the races again. And
But when you said it, did you really mean it?
yeah, that's the scary part. That's what I think a lot of people don't understand about addiction is when we say we want to stop, we actually mean it, and we can't. And that's what separates me from anybody who can just drink on the weekends. Like if you put a lie detector test on me in those moments and ask me, hey, are you really sincere about this? I would say yes. And I have a switch in my mind that when it's flipped on, it's broken in that position. And that's what separates somebody who's an addict and somebody who can casually do things. So yeah, in those moments, I would say this is it, and I would get up the next day, and something would take a hold of me, and that wasn't it. Now the last moment. So at this point, I've already been to rehab once. I've been to outpatient kind of therapy my whole entire life at this point. Like I got started when I was probably 13, 14. And was in and out of that my whole high school, my whole after high school, et cetera. But this last moment, I've already been to rehab once. You know, 30-day program. You go away, you sleep there, and you come back in 30 days. And during that first initial kind of stint or try at sobriety, you learn things and you know the solution, which makes going back to your old lifestyle not enjoyable. Because while you're now living this old lifestyle, you are now remembering all the things that you learned, and you know that there's a way out, right? So that's kind of what I was going through for like a year or two after I tried to get sober the first time. And this last moment, I was, you know, as cliche as it sounds, I was in my backyard looking up at the sky. It was nighttime. And I said to myself, I don't think I can do this, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try again. And I called my father and I said, I think I'm ready to go away again. And he was like, okay. You know, like he was like so quick to get me off the phone so he can make that call to the insurance company or whatever call he had to make to get me placed into treatment. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I was like, fuck, what did I just do? like I'm like, damn. I'm like, now I'm hit with this reality of like that. But that's how hopeless and powerless I was. Is I was going to try this again, but I didn't believe that I could actually do it. And that's very different than when I went away the first time. When I went away the first time, it was like this kind of happy, motivated, like I'm like a Rocky cutscene where I'm running up the stairs and I'm gonna tackle and I'm gonna preach sobriety and I'm gonna get everybody sober and I'm gonna change my life. This time it was like, I don't think I can do this, but I'm gonna give it a shot. And I think it's because I was humbled enough to accept that I truly don't have power over this. I don't have power over this. And that's where you need to get to. That's the point you need to get to in order to see change.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a highly addictive personality, so I can relate to a certain extent. It's all or nothing. Like that switch, broke. Like I get it. I relate to that.
And let me just say, like, that wasn't like the moment where like, oh, you know, an angel came down and like, you know, all my problems were solved. I was in rehab maybe 2 weeks later and I'm thinking of ways of getting out.
Yeah.
Like my problems didn't solve.
This isn't a Hallmark movie.
No. But I will tell you, I have a list in my phone because somebody very wise told me that like anytime you have those weird moments, write them down so that you can look back and be like, wow, there was something or someone guiding me throughout this whole journey. But you know, in rehab, I'll tell you one of those crazy stories. In rehab, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. I know people get weird about that sort of stuff. I was one of those people who got weird about that stuff. But at this point, I'm in rehab. I don't believe in God. And I'm like, he can't be real because look at where we are right now. I know the exact room, I was in the bathroom by myself. Everybody was in class. I left class in a nervous wreck, panic attack. Went to my room. You're not supposed to do that.
Were you going through withdrawals at the time?
Yeah. Went to my room, got down on my hands and knees and said, you're not real. I don't believe you're real. If you are real, why is this all happening to us? Why is there 100 people suffering right now? Like, you're not cursing, screaming, cursing, yelling. And that was the day my obsession was lifted.
Damn.
And I'm not going to say I never thought about drugs or alcohol ever again, but I'll tell you, like, that like cycle of thought that you just get wrapped up in when you have a mental obsession went away.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, again, I've never done drugs, but I've been in very toxic situations. And when you're in this toxic situation, you almost feel like when you come out of it, you feel like you were under a spell. And you're just like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? I don't get it. But when you're in it, it's just, you're just obsessed with it.
Work, same thing. Except, you know, the thing with drugs and alcohol is like, if that's what you get addicted to, consequences happen and pain sets in, right? Other addictions, let's say it's work. Sometimes you get addicted to work and yeah, bad things happen, but they're not as dramatic as, you know, what an addict goes through. Obviously.
It's different, but it's all
and you actually get the good things out of it. Like if you're addicted to the gym, you know, you could take it out of control, but it's also, you're getting positive things about it. So very rarely does somebody suffer enough pain where they're like, oh, let me stop this. I
mean, addiction is a weird caveat, bro, because in reality, you can't become great at anything unless you're like somewhat addicted to it, like obsessed with it. But at the same time, like being addicted to anything isn't great.
Yeah.
You know, if you're addicted to work, it's like, when I was at NYU getting my master's, the professors were like the best of everything. And most of them were like totally addicted to their jobs. And pretty much every single one of them were divorced, kids hated them,
right,
the whole nine.
Right.
So there's give and take with anything. I mean, there's guys that are addicted to the gym, and then they're so addicted to the gym that that's all they do. And, you know, personal relationships suffer, and then they start doing substances because like they need to look a certain way. It just, but the irony is, again, if you want to be great at something, you have to be kind of obsessed with it. So do you feel that that your addictive nature carries through to other things in your life.
Duh.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah, no, but I would say work specifically.
Yeah. Well, or just whatever that thing is that you're on right now. You just happen to be on work right now.
Yeah, but it's very like now different because I have something else kind of guiding me and centering me, and yeah, it consumes a lot of my time and it's an obsession. Work is an obsession. I'm always constantly thinking like, how can we be better? How can we do better? And you know, how can we grow? How can we scale? It's like when I'm not working, I'm thinking about work. But it's way different of an addiction because now I have something that I didn't have, which is like something that's rooting me and grounding me, which is my relationship with God.
Yeah, I had no idea that you were that religious.
So my religiousness has ebbed and flowed. I've always been, you know, I've always talked to God and had a relationship with him ever since I got sober. That's how I got sober. But as of late, I've been more of, you know, let me get back to church and let me read the Bible and that's what the beginning was like. But then life gets so good and you start to stray away because you're not as desperate. And now it's more of like, okay, you know, I know where this leads, so let me get back into it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and listen, I think that's okay. Everything kind of like ebbs and flows.
It's a relationship.
You get busy, you have a lot of stuff going on. So obviously, big transformation, right?
Life is different.
That was heavy.
Yeah.
From that to where you are right now. I mean, what has your team accomplished, you know, over the last 5 years or so? And what have you personally accomplished from, you know, a volume standpoint, a number standpoint, or whatever standpoint you want to talk about?
So something that I'm really proud of is we grew by 70% from 2023 to 2024 in a industry that got cut by
collapsing.
60%.
Literally collapsing.
You know, I think that was the number, 60%. Like, okay, so from the high, from where it was previously, the industry went down 60%, but we went up 70, which was something that I'm very happy about. Now, part of that is because we grew, you know, as far as our loan officer headcount, right? So, and we also do have a knack for making each one of our loan officers as successful as possible. So where other loan officers, they got hit harder, our loan officers, because of the things that we do and the development and how we help them develop, and the opportunities that we throw their way, didn't get hurt by the market as much. So that's really twofold. It's a combination of really sowing and trying to put your all into helping people be successful, and then also increasing the size of our team.
Sorry, bro. Got a tickle.
It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really it's kind of interesting as I get older and more involved in business. Because when before, it was like you want to grab everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look at the data, you kind of realize you want to like focus all your efforts on a much smaller group of people,
Mm-hmm.
a much smaller segment of the market, whatever it is, and you end up making a lot more money that way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at the beginning, you're like, you know, I want to focus on everything because I want to have every single loan officer.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hit every single area. But in actuality, if you focus on 5% of loan officers in a certain area, you'll make a lot more money.
I'm going to pull something up, but I couldn't agree more. And a lot of companies took that approach of just increasing LO headcount, just grab as many people as possible.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Thinking that, okay, these are outside originators. They don't take salaries. So there's no cost,
yeah.
Right? However, there is a cost. There's a lot of tech that goes into it. There's, you know, the amount of support that each one of those LOs need. And a lot of times the people who do the least amount of business need the most amount of support. So it's draining the resources. But just from a dollar perspective, there's tons of costs associated with bringing on a loan officer. I can't find the actual slide, but I was just at the New England Mortgage Conference or Expo, and guy Rick Rogue did a presentation on like LO production, and don't quote me on this, but I think there's only 800 loan officers in the country that do $3 million in loan volume a month.
Yeah.
It's only 800. So if that's the segment of loan officers, so that just shows you how small the pool actually is.
Yep.
And now it opens up drastically when you go down to the $2 million mark, but not by much. It's only like, let's say 2,000. So and then below that, it's thousands and thousands, right?
Yeah.
And there's only about 200 something thousand loan officers in general. So you have to be intentional with who you're bringing on. And other than production though, which is obviously important, I think it's also the attitude and the mentality of the loan officers that you're bringing on. Does it fit with what you are trying to build? Does it fit with where you're trying to go?
Yeah, your culture.
Correct.
Your core values as a company.
Correct. And I think a lot of companies will sacrifice that to get the producer. And ultimately, you may win in the short term because more production is more money, but something happens to a company when that happens.
Most companies don't have core values. They don't have corporate structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bro, it took me, like I said this the other day, I've been in business since I'm 23 years old. Like I've owned a number of different businesses since I'm 23 years old. And I only recently am becoming a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 plus years in business and only recently becoming, a CEO and knowing what that means. I mean,
it baffles me that there are medium-sized independent mortgage banks that
even large,
right, that still don't have core values, still don't have
no SOPs, no structures,
nothing,
no town halls, freaking nothing.
So, and listen, and that's partly because implementing that stuff is not easy, as me and you both know.
It's really hard and really painful. It's
really hard, really painful, and it also is extremely time consuming.
It's a 2 to 3 year process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least a 1 to 3 year process.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really, so it's a 1 to 3 year process. But here's the biggest thing, right? People don't know how to do it. They don't know what they don't know. They don't
mm-hmm.
know about it. They don't know what positions you need. They don't know how to build from the top down. They don't know any of these things.
I also think that our industry in particular, and I'm not making excuses for anybody, but our industry in particular is such an in-the-weeds business because mortgages are difficult. It's very nuanced. Even your business especially, it's like this house is different. It's in a different township, and there's certain code there, and it needs this renovation, these renovations, and something happens with this stage of the renovation process. It's so in the weeds. That's why it's so hard to scale, right? And because of that, leaders will get, which I think is good for leaders to be in the weeds, but to do these like core values and town halls, and they're so needed and so valuable. But it's very difficult when you're in a business like that. It's not like running I guess every business is kind of in the weeds. I can't even think of an example.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you on. I don't think it's industry specific. I think it's every industry.
Yeah, maybe I said I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I'm just trying to figure out why it is the case that there are many mortgage companies that don't have that.
And it's not mortgage companies. It's every company.
Every company. Okay.
Because I do it again. Even me. Up until, let's say, like a year ago, I was deeply involved in the business because when you scaling a business, this is like my newest challenge that I'm overcoming. Mm-hmm. Because anybody can work their ass off and make money and have a business that's really a job. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't have a business unless you can go away for a month and it functions just as well, if not better, without you. Mm-hmm. But if you don't understand who to hire, how to hire, a lot of this stuff doesn't add to the bottom line.
Yep,
And that it's very time consuming. It's extremely painful. Mm-hmm. It doesn't add to the bottom line short term. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't have the patience for it. There's only certain kind of people that are wired to be able to do that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. it would mean that you have to reinvest in the business instead of buying, cars and houses and bullshit. So it's very difficult. And you also have to it's a skill set to know how to build a business like that.
Yep.
I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and many, many years training with top guys who do that stuff to be able to begin to understand how it works. And even then it's not easy. It's like, oh, I think this person's right. Whoop, fired them 3 days later. Like it's just, it's hard.
But that's why very few do it.
Exactly.
I think, core values is something that I was like, I went to my partners. I was like, we need this. It's like, but I have to get this loan cleared. So like
I don't know them, but I feel like they're probably looking at you like, what are you talking about?
Listen, I think there's innovators and implementers, and there's all these different archetypes, right? And I'm the innovator, I'm the visionary, but there's a known conflict that happens between visionaries and let's call them like operators. So I think it goes without saying that they probably think about like, the things that I talk about, and they're like, oh, like I just have to get these loans cleared, right? But that's why our business works so well, is because we have both. You can't have one without the other. So it's super important to have both. But our core values is something that like I spent a number of months trying to figure out and redoing and rewriting. And I listened or read something that was like, just think of your best team members and kind of write out their traits, and your core values already exist within your organization. You just haven't written it yet.
Yeah.
So I thought of our best team members and what makes them our best team members, and what I think will grow the best company. And that's where our core values kind of stem from. Did
you read Traction?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you guys implement EOS?
We, not officially, but we did the VTO and sort of got that far. And then it's just a matter of, do we want to continue with this process, hire professional help,
integrator,
et cetera. Yeah.
I did it.
It was worth it?
Years ago. We did it years ago. I mean, it's gangster. Stoplight reports, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it'll change.
Now that things have kind of, the dust has settled in our transition, because we just moved 60 people from one company to another.
Yeah.
It's,
just furnishing the space and getting everyone's freaking computers fired
up. So that's on top of redoing a 10,000 square foot office and furnishing the space.
Yeah.
So it's twofold. And moving 60 people means everybody logs into like, 4 or 5 or 6 different systems in the mortgage industry. You have, your credit logins, your pricing logins, your Encompass logins, your CRM logins, your Outlook, your everything, right? Just getting 60 people of those things and getting the systems running. Obviously it was a stressful time, but the dust has settled, and we're like doing really, really well right now. It's kind of, it's inspiring the fact that we were able to get through that and thrive so quickly. But now that the dust has settled, I think we can kind of revisit the whole EOS implementation thing.
Bro, there's a ton of business out there. Like, let's keep in mind that 2024 had the lowest amount of transactions nationwide in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yet certain people like yourself are literally leaps and bounds scaling and taking market share.
The cream rises to the top. I think the industry got so used to, let me just sit back and wait for my phone to ring, that they forgot how to build their business. And there's also been a lot of companies and loan officers that are just waiting for things to get better. And I never stopped building. We never stopped building.
Yeah.
That's why even though the industry has shrunk, we continue to grow.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess kind of like, 2 parts to that, but I agree with you. On like the LO side, and I always say the realtor side, because I always kind of put realtors and LOs kind of
similar.
similar.
You're independent sort of to grow your own business, but you work under an umbrella. It's similar.
So I think that there is a decent amount of LOs and realtors that it's not that they're like waiting for it to get better. They want to be better. The thing is, they don't know how to be better. And that, I think, is the problem.
You disagree with me once. I think I'm going to disagree with you.
Well, bring it on.
That's like saying that you don't know how to get in shape nowadays. Like, the information is out there.
Yes.
Whether you're consuming it or not, maybe you need to, there's people who want to be better.
Yes.
They have that. And there's people who just don't care and they're just living their life. If you want to be better, odds are you're consuming information and you know what you need to do. Why you don't do it, that's for psychologists to figure out. And I don't, it's not.
We can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sort of different, thought processes on why people don't take care of themselves, but they'll take care of their pet more than themselves. Like, there's this whole, whatever. But I think the information is out there, and I'll tell you right now, our company's about 80 people. That includes operations. Let's say we're 60 loan officers. Some of which this is like a part-time hobby thing. So let's cut it down a little bit. That's where we're at right now. But we're onboarding 10 loan officers in February. So we're growing leaps and bounds. But anyway, looking at our organization, and I would think that we are more active than most because we're in the office every day. We have a culture where it's like, if you're not working, what are you doing? It's good for somebody who does want to grow. But I can tell you from looking at our organization, there's only 4 things that grow your business as a loan officer. Making new referral relationships, the 4 activities, let's call them. Make them new referral relationships, calling your past clients, calling your pre-approved clients, and calling your existing referral relationships. If you looked at every loan officer's schedule and calendar and you followed them around, they're not doing those 4 things. Now, there's other things that you can add to it, but those are like the 4 bare minimum things that you can do right now. It doesn't take any like learning or intense strategy. Those are 4 things that everybody can do to build their business. And guess what? Nobody's doing them.
Yes.
And do you think it's because they don't know that they should be doing that?
I think it's a little more complicated than that. Like, I agree with you in the sense that, information is flowing around everywhere. And I will have the argument with someone that says, listen, if Jay-Z can become a billionaire, everybody can. Like, we're all not born the same, but we're all born with equal opportunity. Mm-hmm. And the information is out there, yes. But not everybody is built, designed, or gifted enough to be able to put it together. Mm-hmm. I will give you a very brief example. So my field reps are running around in 2024. They're closing deals. I'm gathering all the data. I sit down with them the first week of January and I say, listen, we're going to put together a path to plan based on your goals. I want to understand what they are. And then we're going to put together real metrics on how that happens. Mm-hmm. So I said, how much money you want to make? And they're like, X. I'm like, great. Here's the deal. You go on X amount we set you up where you're going on X amount of appointments a month, which breaks down to a week. The national KPI says that you're supposed to close this. I think you should close this because of all the training and everything you have and our data and how you're set up. Can you close this? Yes, I can close this. If you close X% of deals, they're going to split one way and the other way. If 50% go this way, 50% go that way, here's how it all breaks out. At the end of the year, on every single one of my one-on-ones, it dwarfed the potential for what they could make, dwarfed what they wanted to make. Mm-hmm. And they all agreed that it was very easy for them, when broken down to the ridiculous, to achieve that goal. And that goal is, you guys each have to do 1 deal a week. 2 deals a week. You guys have to get 2 deals a week under contract, right? You're going to do 100 a year, but based on the scenario that we have here, it's easy for you. You're going to go out on 6 appointments. You're going to close 2 out of those. One's going to be a retail. One's going to be an acquisition. This is how the numbers break out. This is going to be your commissions and incentives at the end of the year, at the end of the month. I put that in place in January. Bro, these guys are on another level now because they get it.
So it's clarity.
It's clarity. It's structure. It's a lot of these guys, both on the, and this is my broker thesis that we've talked about before, but mortgage brokers fit into this exact, mortgage lenders fit into this exact same thing. You have to put them into a very structured, regimented environment and system that basically makes it impossible for them to not understand and deviate. If they're deviating, it's due to sheer laziness. There's no misunderstanding. And you've broken it down to the simplest act. Like, hey, bro, you know that you're going to go out this week and you're going to get 6 appointments. You're expected to get 2 of them.
It's so we're living in parallel universes.
No, it's the same. The business is the same. So if you're able to create that and drop these people into it, now I would argue also that it has to be a certain personality type. Person has to have a certain amount of desire and chutzpah and all that stuff. Is that a Jewish term?
I think so.
Chutzpah? Right.
Yeah.
Maybe Yiddish. To do it, is it? Yes. All right. Cool. To do it, or they're not going to achieve it, which is why you don't take everybody. But I do believe if you put the system in place, and then also there's accountability. So every month you're sitting down with them like, hey, did you hit the markers? You said you could hit the markers. Why aren't you hitting the markers? Let's look at everything. You missed all these deals. Somebody else listed them. Somebody else bought them. Why? When you do that, all of a sudden these guys explode.
So I'll give you our I'll pull the curtain back for a second. So we heavily, one of our like pillars of LO success and pillars of our LO value proposition is development. Okay. So we're going to help you build your business. We're going to get in the batter's box with you. We're going to say, move your foot a little this way. Now swing. Okay. Put your bat back further. I never played baseball, but, but I was trying. So we're gonna help you because everybody's at a different spot. Yeah. Everybody wants to go to a different spot. So you need that one-on-one sort of attention and insight. So we do one-on-one growth calls. Then we do weekly huddles. So we'll cover topics from FHA 101 to also, how to use social media. So we're doing a social media boot camp right now, which is a few weeks long. We started on Wednesday with profile optimization and a brand exercise. Next week, we're going to do scripting and putting together their content plan. And then the week after, they're going to start shooting on a bi-monthly basis. So this is how we're trying to leave no excuse. Like, what you need to do. We talk about it on a monthly basis. We talk about it on a weekly basis. And then also what we're doing right now, because it's the beginning of the year, is putting together their goal budget. So similar to what you sit down with your field reps and do, where it's like, how much money do you want to make? Okay, let's reverse engineer that number. I built a spreadsheet that I personally use. I'm not exempt from needing to do this, right? But you write down all of not only the expenses that you have, but the expenses that you maybe want, whether it's a new car, whether it's a new apartment, whether it's a new house. I know this isn't like your forte, but for me, like, a number itself does not motivate me unless I know what that number provides. If you don't want to get a new car, don't want to get a new house, you need to at least know, okay, how much does the life that I want to live cost? Maybe it's vacations. Maybe you want to take 2 really nice grand vacations a year. Those are 6-10 grand a piece between you and your spouse, right? So we write down, how much does the life that I want to live cost? That's where our number comes from. And then we translate that into how many deals. And then we translate that into how much activities we need to do, actions that matter, ATM. So we build our ATM schedule. Like, I'm the same way, where it's like, I want to make it so clear, and then also hold you accountable, which I'll talk about in a second, that the only thing that can deviate you from hitting this number is laziness, like you said. And listen, I'll fall into it. I'll get lazy a week or 2, and I'll snap myself out of it. I know I have certain metrics that I need to hit, and when I see that I'm not going to hit them at the end of the month, I'm like, I gotta kick it into high gear, and I hold myself accountable. But with the accountability piece, those 4 activities that I was talking about earlier, I'm like, okay, let's remove the excuses, right? Let's say you don't know how. Here's the scripts. on how to do it. Here's what you're shooting for on that phone call. And then not only that, you're gonna watch me do it live and in person. So I'll go live on Slack. We'll have in office. You'll hear me do it. I'll call my past clients and you can listen to me. So here's a script. You can listen to me live, whether you're virtually or in office, and we're gonna do this together. So on Tuesdays, we're gonna do this. On Wednesdays, we're gonna do this. On Thursdays, we're gonna do this. And on Fridays, we're gonna do this as a company. So there's 20, 30 of us on this phone call, and we're all doing it together. So the accountability is there, the direction is there, clarity. It all starts with knowing their goal. It like no other company is doing this. And maybe it's because, they say like the larger you get, the less nimble you are. So it's harder to innovate, harder to change, harder to embrace new things. So again, maybe I'm making excuses for larger companies or medium companies, but it's like our goal, our mission is to give a no compromise platform to originators to reach their full potential. That is our goal. And if anything that doesn't fit into that goal is a waste of time for us. And development is a big part of making that goal a reality.
Yeah, no, and that's what a lot of companies don't spend time on because it doesn't move the bottom line in the short term.
Yeah, but so I'm not driven by the bottom line. We're not driven by the bottom line. We're driven by the success of the individual LO, which will increase the bottom line. It's
going to massively increase the bottom line.
Yeah.
But it's just done differently.
Yeah.
And it's just ironic that I feel like we got away from some of the old school method of sales and training and all that because everything was tech and brand. But I think a lot of that stuff has to come back. But I do think that when it comes to one-on-one salespeople like realtors, loan officers, and then some, if you build a system that you can drop them into where they're held accountable for, they will perform on a level that they would never perform individually. Because not everybody, when you're an LO, you're running your own business, but not everybody's meant to be a business person. Salespeople are not business people. It's a totally different skill set. So you can't, to kind of bring it full circle to before, you can't, even though the information's out there, a lot of times you can't expect these people to do it because they're not hardwired to be able to do it. Right. They're hardwired to do this one thing really well.
Yeah.
So you have to remove everything else from them.
Right.
And they will succeed.
That's what we hope for.
So you're the fucking man.
Nah.
Very proud of you. Listen, great.
Thank
I'm
you.
really happy that worked out and that it's all working out.
Yeah.
Any LOs out there? Anything you wanted to say to that camera right there?
Don't let the haters stop you from doing your thing. All right, that's it.
Eric Braun, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.